you agree or do you disagree? Before you make that decision, I will read the body of the story. I will take a quick commercial break, and then I'll be right back. Actually, let me take that quick commercial break. When I come back, I'll read the body of the story. Unfortunately, my guest had to attend to an emergency this morning, so he's unable to join me. I'd invited someone who is a director at one of the private universities, which is along that Lagos-Ibadan Express Road. They're now one of the more popular one, which is also the argument we have about over 70 private universities. How many can you list? How many do you know are actually thriving and are successful? So the bone of contention will also be in the body of this new story that we will take, and then of course we'll take your reactions and comments. It is Beyond the Surface, and we'll be right back.
Hey! Make you no sleep on top bicycle. This better don't tie rapper. For those of you who never using an MTN SIM for over 15 days now, MTN don't charge. Come increase your welcome back of our whoop to 12 times your recharge when you load 100 naira and above. Yes, so no be 1, no be 2, no be 3, no be 4, no be even 10 sef. Now 12 times your recharge, then go take credit and data knock your phone. This one means if you recharge 100 naira, MTN go summer you with 900 naira credit plus 300 naira data bonus. If you can't recharge 200 naira, now 1,800 naira credit go drop for your phone plus 600 naira data bonus. Just make sure you use *161 recharge pin hash take recharge and enjoy your bonus for up to 30 days. This one don't pass welcome back. MTN can add short banker second term on top self. Hey, where that my MTN SIM? Make me self begin follow enjoy better too.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Charles!
Yes, mommy?
Go and bring 2 sachets of hypo bleach for me.
Why 2?
Because I'm using 1 to soak the whites and using 1 to kill all the germs.
But I can't see any germs here.
They are so tiny you can't see them. But they are there. And that is why I trust only hypo bleach to kill them all.
Make your white fabrics whiter and your household free of illness causing germs and viruses with the disinfecting power of hypo bleach.
Hey, why did you put it in the pot like that? You're supposed to break it first.
Says who? This is how I cook my pasta. Besides, it's golden penny pasta. It's non-sticky, so it doesn't matter.
But I want to cook it with meatballs mixed with pepper sauce and cheese.
Go ahead and enjoy your golden penny pasta just the way you want it. Golden penny pasta is made with durum wheat, which contains protein, and it's non-sticky, so you can cook, serve, and eat just the way you want it. With golden penny pasta, your way is best.
Mọ ohun tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní àyíká rẹ nípasẹ̀ ìròyìn BBC ní Yorùbá. Nítorí kí o tó lè tayọ, o ní láti mọ̀ ọ́n. Ní ìmísí pẹ̀lú àwọn oríṣiríṣi ìròyìn láti ibi àti káàkiri àgbáyé. Nígbà tí o bá ní ìmọ̀ nípa ohun tó ń lọ ní àgbáyé, o lè ṣe ohunkóhun. Mọ ohun tó ń ṣẹlẹ̀ ní àyíká rẹ. Wá BBC News Yorùbá kàn.
Àwọn tó kán létí wọn mọ ohun tó dára o. Kásìsì máa ni wọ́n ń lò. Kásìsì ìmọ̀ ẹ̀rọ òde òní náà fi ṣe. Kásìsì ó dára kì máa í mòrò. Ó tún ṣe ege sí odi ìwòsàn bá fẹ́ o. Ó lè kókó. Ó dára ó rẹwà ó lànà pẹ́. Ó lè kókó. Ó dára ó rẹwà ó lànà pẹ́. Prestige wà. Lẹ́gẹ̀dì gan ìyẹn ò lẹ́gbẹ́. Diamond wà. Crystal pẹ̀lú Supreme tó dára. Ilé iṣẹ́ Nigerite ló ṣe wọ́n jáde o. Nigerite calcicil kò táwọn yọjú.
Calcicil sílẹ̀ tí ilé iṣẹ́ Nigerite fìmọ̀ ẹ̀rọ ayé òde òní gbé jáde. Ó rẹwà, ó le koko, ó lálòpẹ́. Bàbá ń bari ẹ̀ ní pé kì í mòoru. Ó yàtọ̀ láwùjọ àwọn sílẹ̀. Ó tún ṣe gẹ́sì pèlè ìpèlè. Bẹ́ẹ̀ owó rẹ̀ mọ̀ níwọ̀nba. Ó sì wà ní gbogbo ilé ìtajà Nigerite jákèjádò Nàìjíríà. Nigerite calcicil ó ju sílẹ̀ lásán lọ.
Ẹ̀yin tèmi, ó dẹ̀ rọrùn fún mi láti máa ṣorin fún yín, ṣùgbọ́n ṣé mo kó tó tún rọrùn fún mi jù láti ṣe àsopọ̀ NIN mi àti ẹ̀ka ìpè Glo mi. Mo lè mú ẹ̀rọ ìpè mi kí n sì tẹ *109*NIN# tàbí kí n pe 109 lórí ẹ̀ka ìpè Glo mi kí n sì tẹ̀lé àwọn ìfilọ́lẹ̀ rẹ̀. Tí kò bá wù mí láti pè, mo lè tẹ àtẹ̀ránṣẹ́ NIN mi sí 109. Mo lè kàn sórí glowworld.com/NIN pẹ̀lú íńtánẹ́ẹ̀tì ayárabíàṣá mi tí kò bá sún mi tí ò rẹ̀ mi mo lè yà ní ẹ̀ka Glow World tó súnmọ́ mi jù. Tó bá dẹ̀ ti gbàgbé NIN rẹ̀ tẹ *346# láti rí gbà padà. Ẹlòmíì lè béèrè wípé tí n bá ní NIN kọ̀ kò burú. Glow jẹ́ igi lẹ́yìn ọgbà ẹ̀ nítorí o lè yan fandawọ èyíkéyìí Glow World tó súnmọ́ ẹ jù kó sì ṣe forúkọsílẹ̀. Ìrọ̀rùn ló bá dé. Má jẹ́ kán já ẹ̀ka ìpè Glow rẹ o nítorí àwọn àǹfààní tó pọ̀ sí ìpè àti data látọwọ́ Glow àti so NIN rẹ pọ̀ pẹ̀lú ẹ̀ka Glow rẹ ó rọrùn gidi kò léwu ọ̀fẹ́ ni kò sì ní wàhálà rárá.
Glow Unlimited.
It is time for celebration. Oh. 30 years bustling with goodness. Eh. The challenge can never ever stop us. You can't underrate us. You can't underrate. But still with so much greatness. Enjoy our world of good. 30 years of nourishing goodness.
2020 ń lọ sópin 2021 á dára.
Ó ga jù ọdún yìí ojú mi rí màbo ọdún tó ń bọ̀ gbọ́dọ̀ dùn.
ọmọ ọdún tó ń bọ̀ ní láti dùn ṣáá ni mo gbọ́dọ̀ make ẹ̀.
òótọ́ ni o nítorí láti oṣù kejì ọdún títí di oṣù kẹrin ọdún 2021 èèyàn mẹ́jọ ni yóò jẹ mílíọ̀nù kankan náírà tẹ́nì kọ̀ọ̀kan nínú èèyàn ọgọ́sàn 180 yóò jẹ ẹgbẹ̀rún lọ́nà ọgọ́rùn-ún kan náírà níbikíbi lórílẹ̀‐èdè Nàìjíríà lásìkò ìpolongo oríire Polaris Save and Win láti yege ṣáà ti máa fi ẹgbẹ̀rún mẹ́wàá náírà tàbí jù bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ pamọ́ sínú àkáǹtì rẹ lóṣooṣù fóṣù mẹ́ta léraléra bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti oṣù kọkànlá ọdún yìí ìyíkoto yóò bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti oṣù kejì ọdún 2021 torí náà yára tẹ *833# kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ ayélujára pẹ̀lú polarisbanklimited.com tàbí èyíkéyìí ẹ̀ka Polaris lórílẹ̀‐èdè yìí láti ṣí àkáǹtì rẹ tó bá ṣe ń fowó pamọ́ sí láyé láti jẹ̀bú ó ṣe pọ̀ sí ìpolongo oríire Polaris Save and Win yóò máa tẹ̀síwájú láti ìsinsìnyí títí doṣù kẹrin ọdún 2021 òfin àti ìlànà wà o fún àlàyé sí kàn sí wa lórí ẹ̀rọ alátagbà wa lónìí.
Splash FM 105.5.
Welcome back to Beyond the Surface on Splash. I beg your pardon, Splash 105.5 FM. I hope you're doing good wherever it is you're listening to us from. This morning, we're digging deeper beyond the surface of the newspaper headline that came out a day ago about the approval of 20 private universities. And of course, the ASU president's reaction to that. Well, before we went on that break, I talked about how we currently have about 79 private universities, you know, in Nigeria. So obviously with this 20, wow, that's 99 private universities. But like I said, some people say this is still enough. We're a large population of people in Nigeria. And 99 private universities, especially with the current 43 and 49 federal and state universities, is this still enough to cater for the people who, really want to get into universities? Let's look at the body of this story here and realize that this story is obviously from the angle of the ASU president. So he's going to talk. This story is going to look at it based on why he feels it's not necessarily a great idea to have more private schools, but what he's saying is that what are you doing about the federal schools? Still about 80% of people are still waiting to get into public schools or federal schools, in spite of the fact that we have so many private schools. How many of these private schools also are thriving? How many of them are successful? Now, President of Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, Professor Biodun Guyemi, has described the recent approval of provisional licenses by the federal government to 20 new private universities to operate as a charade and mockery of university education in the country. He said this at the weekend in an exclusive interview with Tribune when asked to share his thoughts and perception about the approval and the huge number of schools involved, particularly in the face of the current unrest in the nation's public universities. So it's about timing from his point of view as well. So first, the SANU has already also gone on strike, and quite a number of all these bodies, ASU had been on strike pretty much the whole of last year. They've been trying to negotiate something with the federal government. Then they gave a conditional, they suspended the strike conditionally, and then now it feels like the government is I guess from what he's saying, he feels like the government is just like a slap on their face. So whilst you are unable to do certain things, public universities are still there and still suffering. You're licensing more. Anyway, let's read a bit more. He said it was neither that he nor ASU as a body has a problem with the establishment of new private universities in the country, but the motive behind government granting them operational licenses is self-centered and not for the public interest. My guest who was supposed to join me today, I'd actually had a conversation with him. He's one of the directors. He's the director of one of the private universities here in Nigeria. Unfortunately, he had to attend to an emergency, and he was talking about how he was disagreeing, which is why I wanted him here. Anyway, he sort of disagrees with the ASU president here. He feels like the more private universities are licensed that we have, the better it will be for the economy, was his standpoint. I really wish he was able to join us today. And here, the ASU president said that the federal government is promoting the establishment of private universities to collapse completely the public university education in the country, just as it had done, according to him, to primary and secondary public education. Before I went in that way, I talked about how 20 years ago, everybody wanted to get into FGGC, one of the FGGC schools, the federal schools, but now there are private schools, and I think that's another argument, though. The sort of like the introduction of more private schools, primary and secondary, has made it so that everybody can, no matter how poor a person is, I think, they can still go to a private school now, I think. Do you guys agree? I have Toby and Labake in the studio. Anybody can go to a private primary school, private second, only that the levels are different, so you can go to a private school, primary school, where they are still saying KUP Cup, and it's a private school, because people now look down on public schools, if you know what I mean. So Professor Oguyemi says that, the private schools have now sort of overshadowed the public primary and secondary schools, and nobody wants to go there, which to him is like you run aground. Professor Oguyemi, a lecturer at Olabisi Onabanjo University, Agoyewo, Ogun State, said only about 3 to 4 out of the existing 79 private universities in the country are thriving, while the others exist merely on paper. I know I have 79. Just without saying out loud, if you can just think quickly, Labake, how many private universities can you, without saying their names, can you mention? Would you say you know about? How many? Just think in your head, and then what do you come to?
Maybe just 4.
Just 4. Okay, you can 5. Somebody came on an internship. So 7. Okay, Labake, but you can only think about 4. Toby, I'm trying to think. Okay. So if you're home, how many can you think of at the top of your head? And we right now have about 79, which is going to rise to about 99 now with the 20 that will be introduced. So how many can you? So if we have 79 and out of there, people can only think about 4. What's happening to the remaining 75? Or okay, like I can remember about maybe 9 or whatever. What's happening to, let's say, 70? What's happening to them there? This story will tell us a bit more. He said that if you can only think about only 3 or 4 out of the existing 79 private universities in the country that are thriving, while the others exist merely on paper. So there are some that have been licensed, that are there, but they have no students. They're just there. Perhaps don't even have any building. They just have papers to say, okay, we have a private school. According to him, many private universities in the country have less than 100 students population despite their long years of establishment. The director of the school that was about to, I'm not going to mention the school, that he said they had about 300 students in their school. 300 is still quite, when you think about a UI, how many students in UI compared to 300? Exactly. In a department. Yeah. Or even in a department or a course. Yes. Oh yes, in a department, exactly. So that's only about 300 in a department, in a UI or IFE or OU, for example, and a whole university has about 300. How are they thriving? How are they surviving? What are they doing to keep afloat? Making reference to statistics, he said the share of all private universities in the entire university student population in the country is only about 5%, while the rest 95% are in public universities. and public universities. This simple arithmetic, he stressed, has clearly shown how crucial the public university education is to Nigeria and its people. That's still it's still arguable. Is it showing how crucial the public university education is, or is it showing that a lot more people just cannot afford? Would you think? Let me ask. These young ladies are, Toby is still just finished school. Labake has finished about a year ago.
No, like 3 years.
3 years ago. So you finished from what school, Labake? Oh, private university. Okay, okay, good. And good, which is fantastic. Mention the private university you finished from.
Finished from Adeleke University.
Adeleke University. How many people were in your class, for example? Or would you say how many in your department?
Then we're 30 something. Yeah.
Okay, that's probably like a class in a secondary school, usually about 30. Well, let's say in a year. Okay, so in your class, how many people were in your class?
In my own department, we're close to 70.
Oh, 70, your department. Okay. All right. So, which is, still fair enough. So what would you have, let's say Labake who went to a private school, for example. No, let's say, okay, so would you think more people who are in federal schools would rather go to a private school but are held back because of the finances? What would you say? Just very quickly.
Yes. I'll agree to that, because you can't. There are some things you can't really. For example, in a private university, like I said, in my own department, my own class, we're 30 something, but like federal schools, you have like 70, more than that.
Can you say roughly how much you paid for school fees?
Well, it depends on your level, your course.
Does it get more expensive as you always
yes,
okay,
yes,
so how would you, let's just, without saying, within how much to how much would you say?
500,000.
500,000. Minimum 500,000. A term or a semester or a year?
No, a section.
Oh, for a session. Okay, great. All right, so Toby, how much would you say you?
Well, I didn't pay up to 100. It's not up to
100,000
for per section.
Oh, per section. 100. Okay, all right. So obviously, even the 100. Like I imagine some people who were trying to get into you. Would you say you paid up to 100?
Not up to 100.
Oh, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Would you even say you paid up to 50K?
No.
Please, Toby, I'm thinking, people can even afford 100K to send their children to school for 100K, So, all right. So let's get back to this now. He says it is very unfortunate, according to him, that our political leaders in successive governments have no political will to make public universities work properly in Nigeria. Rather establish or sponsor one private university or the other. I've had a conversation with somebody before who had said something controversial like it is not government space to make even, education or to... if you go abroad, schooling is very, very expensive. Abroad is very, very expensive. So much that they have to get loans to go to school. Yes, those loans are accessible. So when they start working, they pay back. So it is only in Nigeria that education is, yes, that's really, really cheap. So the fact that government is still funding education somewhat, a lot of people feel this is why we need to have private universities. If you go to America, a lot of people who are not even from wealthy homes are gathering money funds together to send their child abroad in order to go and get, international education. Mm-hmm. We know families that are not wealthy, but they'll send one small plot of land because they want their child to have the best. Then that firstborn perhaps will now sponsor the rest of the children. But education in Nigeria is still relatively cheap. So, even though he calls you unfortunate and he says that this is, some ploy for them to ruin public education in Nigeria, he said many of them even believe that establishing more private universities in the country is the best alternative way to address workers' strike in public universities. He said, but the issue of high tuition fees being charged, and I think that is a bone of contention, that's the crux of the matter. The fact that these private universities are so expensive, some charge as much as 1 million and maybe even above that. So the fact that they are so expensive is so not accessible. How many Nigerians can send their children to a lot of these schools? He calls that a major factor that drives many qualified potential students away from enrolling with them. According to him, more than 70% of Nigerians are living in abject poverty and could not afford 2 square meals per day because they earn less than $2 per day, let alone have the financial capability to enroll with high tuition private schools. He also says, in addition to this challenge, that many of the universities are also not having quality manpower to deliver quality service expected of a good university. One thing that the gentleman I was supposed to invite here told me was that every day he gets CVs, hundreds of CVs. People want to be lecturers, people who are qualified but don't have jobs, and stuff like that. So he gets a lot of this CV. But oftentimes, they also talk about how a lot of these private universities poach lecturers from public universities. They still poach lecturers, and so we find a lot of lecturers who are working in some of these private universities and who still retain their jobs in these federal and state universities. He said what should have been the major concern of Nigeria and the political leaders in particular at both federal and state governments level is to focus on the development of public universities by properly funding them rather than neglecting them to promote the proliferation of private universities that won't be able to reserve national interest. Do you think they can do both? Is it an either-or situation? Can they focus on public universities and then also still license private universities? So there are more options. Whoever can afford to the public universities can do so. But I don't think that should, the fact that there's more private universities means that government cannot both make sure they're licensing more private universities as well as also focusing on making sure that public universities do not become, ghosts of itself, if you know what I mean. He said this is because even in Nigeria, if Nigeria has up to 1,000 private universities, they will still not make significant impact as their high tuition and low quality services would continue to drive people away from enrolling with them. So what is the problem really with the government, or the fact that the system in these private universities, why are they so expensive? I think that's the question to ask. Why are they so expensive? So we're going to open phone lines before we go. It's 8:34. It's still Splash 105.5 FM. And what I'm talking about today is the approval of more private universities and the ASU president calling this a mockery of Nigeria's education. So I want to know what your thoughts are real quickly. So if you want to call in or text in, you can join us on 0706 949 3000, 0706 949 3000. Hello, good morning. Okay. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Ronke and the team.
Good morning. Who's speaking, please?
Tunde from Akubo.
Good to have you here again, Tunde. Thank you very much for joining us. What are your thoughts on this?
I think the ASO chairman or president is just echoing what they've used to hold government down for decades. I see no problem with the licensing of the private universities. Government did not create them. People invested their money and also licensed. It's just like all businesses. Education is open. There's no regulation on it. What you have is NCC going to check whether they meet the criteria, and if they meet the criteria, government approves it.
Right.
I see no problem with it. The fear around the government, the public institutions will always be there. Even the primary school, the secondary school that were always claiming that private schools. If you count the number of kids in private schools, they are still not up to what you have in public schools. So they will always be there. It's like that everywhere.
But how can we ensure, because if what he's talked about here is the valid point, is that out of 79, how many are even functioning? There are lots of, why can't government make sure, because there are still people who are trying to get into university, who every year it's like a hustle to get into the kingdom of, heaven. So why can they not task some of these universities that they have licensed already to ensure?
No. The problem is where we missed it is where we've turned our heads to assume that everybody must go to university.
Fair enough.
That is what we have to correct. It doesn't make any sense. Which job are they going to do? That's why we claim we don't have jobs. Majority should be at the middle level. You go to technical schools, you build and you are paid for it. In fact, you have more money than people going to universities to acquire certificates. But we don't do that. Everybody is now trying to get certificates in cultural anthropology. Courses that you don't even use. You don't even use. So that is where we miss it. Everybody cannot go to. You don't have everybody going to universities everywhere. So now, for me, yes, they can increase the space they can take. Private, they can come. At least that will reduce the pressure. We all want the certificates now. Let them, everybody that have, I know many people are even trying to build their universities. So let them build, or let SEC go there, approve, and let them continue. The lecturers that are complaining, they are the same people. They want to register them on IPPIS because they are collecting salaries in different places. They are fighting that. And it's not the one saying government should do. The problem we have with strike, which is what he's trying to say, that they are doing that because they want to avoid strike, is because government has not put their legs down. If you go on strike, you should not be paid for the period. When you come back, then they start paying you, no problem. But how will you go on strike for 1 year and you come back, you still be paid for not doing nothing? So why would they not go on strike? Government needs to find a way. If you want to on strike, you will use a union dues to pay for that period until you come back, because you are paying union dues to the union. You don't even know what they're using it for. So when you are on strike, they pay for you from there. So when you come back from strike, government starts paying you again. Until we get that point, this cartel that we have everywhere will not stop. Everybody will be on strike and you'll be paid. But what is that? It's not even fair on the students. You are not working and you are paid. So why do you want to go back to work?
Wow.
Everybody can go on strike and pay in their homes and will be paid.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tunde. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate your comments. All right. So what are your thoughts? If you're listening to us, wherever you're listening to us from, we'd like to know your thoughts. Does the fact that we have, like the ASU president said here, even if we like, let us have 1,000 private universities, more people still want to go to public, federal universities and state universities. Why is this? Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's your name, please?
I'm Taufik Yusuf.
Good to have you here, Mr. Taufik Yusuf. Okay, we're having this conversation about federal government giving more licenses for 20 private universities. What are your thoughts on the ASU president saying that this is a mockery on Nigeria's education?
Yes, I actually want to agree with the Professor Ogunyemi,
the
ASU president.
Why do you agree with him?
Yes, because you see, when we have so many private universities, there tends to be a kind of loss of focus in the public university. As you can see now in the secondary school and primary school education, you can see most parents now enroll their students.
But that's government's failure, not necessarily because there are more private schools, but because government sort of has failed.
I agree, actually. I agree that it is within the purview of individuals to submit requests to approve their university, their private private university. Yes, government has to, anybody that comes with the kind of proposal to, he has the money, he has the funds to establish private university, and he submit those proposals to the government. Government cannot deny them, actually. However, we don't have a working system in Nigeria. What are those criteria that implement are put in place for them to judge the qualifications of those private universities? I heard just recently that some universities are scrapping some of their programs. And these are universities already been given licenses. But over time, maybe students are not enrolling or they don't have enough equipment to run those programs. So they have to now cancel some of those programs. So there's need to have a standard that government will set in place that before they can actually approve some of these 60, 68, 100 public private universities. As we see now, for example, the public universities are not working. And somebody was talking about lecturers going on strike, after coming on strike, after coming coming back from the strike, they have to be given their salary. Where they are not information, the kind of pre-information for the government, giving them maybe 3 weeks or 2 weeks warning before they go on total lockdown or probably the total strike. What is the government doing? If you have a member of staff working in your establishment, and these staff are saying that in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, we'll be going on strike, what should be somebody who's an employer, who knows that the system will run down, what should he do? Should he allow these people to go on strike when he knows that at the end of the day, he will still have to pay them? What has happened to what they have lost in this process?
If they cannot give them what they are asking, it's a negotiation if they can't. So how do they stop them from going on strike if government feels like it cannot give them what they're asking for? So government can't stop. Government can't stop them from going on strike if they feel like they want. Yes.
Let me take it this way.
Okay.
We want to go on strike. We have to give the government 3 weeks or 2 weeks when it's strike. During those periods, what does government do? They say they don't have what they can't stop the action from going on because they don't have what. But after 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, they still come back to the negotiation table. We have to come to the table and discuss. Eventually, a kind of give and take agreement between them, and as we now come back on strike, they are now come back on strike. Why not doing that within the three weeks warning?
Okay.
Why wasting time?
Okay.
And in advanced country, public universities are what those countries are using to survive. They fund those universities. In fact, most people that are working in private universities, they want to come back to the public university because they get more money, they get more funds in public universities. And some of the companies running in those countries, like that they produce all those products we see, they always have a kind of collaboration with the professors in the public university. In fact, it's difficult for private universities to compete with public universities in those countries. But the reverse is the case in Nigeria. So we have a problem of system. And university is enough of government to restructure all this we are crying about. If the public universities are funded very well, all you coming up to establish private university will not even come up.
Wow.
So they will not function.
Oh, well, I'm not quite sure about that, to be honest. But thank you very much. We appreciate you calling in. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much. All right, so number to call is 0809-155-1055. We can take one or two more telephone calls. We want to know what your thoughts are. Is there an either-or situation? Like I said, I don't know, the gentleman that just called now was talking about how private public universities, but education is expensive. Even there are people who go to America, even as an American citizen, you have to pay, in order to get an education. Yes, there are loans that they acquire in order to get this, but you still have to pay. The university is not cheap. That's why a lot of them struggle in order to get some sort of scholarship, etc. Obviously, yes, it's cheaper than for those of us who still go there and pay through our noses to get education abroad, but still, it is not cheap. So it's an either-or situation. The government really just licenses these private universities, not like they are funding them per se. So does it stop them from doing what they need to do to make sure public universities are thriving as well? Hello, good morning. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Ronke.
Good morning. What's your name, please? Eze, hi, good morning. Good to have you here. Go ahead. What are your thoughts, please?
Yeah, I want to come from a different perspective.
Okay.
Now, for our religious institutions that own universities, it's still a serious concern that their members can attend.
Right.
Yes, we need to address that. I mean, I'm attending a church and I can't, and I pay my tithe, I do other things, but my child can't go to that school. It's a serious concern. Let's be truthful to ourselves. Apart from the fact that the government is starving the private, the public institutions,
right,
and also the saga, the religious body should find a way, to make sure that the worshippers that come to the church also have access to that education. It's not what we are talking about, so that enough of our children can go to school.
Right. But a lot of them will argue that if they make it cheap enough, then they won't have this, obviously be able to, the standard that they have, which is why a lot of people go there, is because they are able to,
Yes,
exactly. So if they make it cheap so everybody in their church can go there, then,
I know, that's the argument, man. That's the argument, but yes, it is not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough because education is very important. And so I don't know how they're going to make it. They should find a way. There's always a solution to every problem. So that they can also have a sense of belonging. Instead of us looking for when the federal government will put. Only God knows when the federal government will attend to public position. Maybe it's 2050. Because there have been problems in 1960. So who's going to solve the problem? Madam Ronke? Nobody. So let us do the right thing. If we can solve, we cannot wait for government. Let us do the needful and bring smiles to the face of millions of Nigerians who are 70% who are living below poverty level. It's painful. It's
It is. Thank you very much, Eze. Thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate you this morning for being a part of the program. All right, you can take one more. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name, please?
Is that BeyondTheSurface from Oloreshogo?
Good to have you here, Mr. Fetiga. Go ahead.
I don't want to... Let me quickly talk about the church. Please, it is possible for church to run cheap education.
Okay.
I don't want to mention names. Let's think about one of the biggest churches in Nigeria. Let's assume they have 5 million members. I'm sure in Lagos alone, they have more than 5 million members. Now, if that 5 million members are committed to paying 100 naira every Sunday, just 100 naira every Sunday for the development of the school, that means in a Sunday you're having 500 million naira. Am I right? In a month you are having 2 billion naira. 100 naira, my sister. So the church can run cheap education, but the church also has turned to money-making organization. And that is why we are here today. On the public schools, one of our problems, like you said, your guest who should have been on the radio this morning said that most of these schools are owned by government officials. So they don't want the government schools to work so that their own business can work.
Well, my guest didn't quite say that. I'm not sure that my guest didn't say that it's owned by. You cannot categorically say that they are owned by government officials. We all know a lot of them. Okay.
Some are owned and some are being invested on by the government officials. Okay. So they don't want it to work. If the public school works, their own business will not strive. What is the solution? I don't want to talk much about the problem.
Okay.
The solution is this. Just imagine our wonderful governor in Oyo State, Sheyi Makinde. His child or his children Aduke Akintola University of Technology. Can you imagine that? Now, let's assume our senators, their children are in UI, they are in Unilorin and some other public schools like that.
Right.
What do you think would have happened? A miracle. I will call it a miracle. So until we have a kind of law,
right?
I want to call it a law,
right?
Because in Nigeria we don't do things by moral, we do things by law and even by force. So let
to
that
have the
be
children
a law.
of political office holders in public schools, you will not thrive. Is what you're saying. Well,
to the president level.
Okay, well, so we have to go, but this is an argument we must continue to have. Sometimes I know, because it feels like some people will say you can't tell the church how to spend their money. It's people that are donating from their own free will. It's government we need to task to ensure that they're doing what they need to do. People are paying taxes, even though people are not paying as much taxes as they ought to, but still, it's government's place to ensure that the government schools that are there are functioning, are thriving, are well. Because the honest truth and the fact, bottom line is that a lot more people still want to go to public schools or can only afford to go to these public schools, as opposed to even if we have like 1,000 private schools. So it is government's place to ensure, and I don't think it's an either or. They can license universities, so people want to put their money into universities can do so, but still doesn't stop them from doing what they need to do in order to keep our universities in a good space. Like I said, this is a conversation that we must continue to have. It's not a one-off conversation, and so this is where we round off for today on this conversation. Thank you very much for joining me and for participating and for listening. If that's all you just did, I appreciate that as well. We've got Tiffin Cheddar coming up at 9 o'clock, and of course so much more lined up for you. I'm Ronke Giwa Onafuwa. Thank you, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Charles!
Yes, mommy?
Go and bring 2 sachets of hyper bleach for me.
Why 2?